Hey y'all, hey, we are back for another review of Ruthless. We're on season 5, episode 4, entitled Death Will Bring Death. And so we pick back up with Daikon unaliving the injured as instructed by the highest in the last episode. Then Ruth walks into the trailer and kind of sees the devastation and destruction that has just taken place. And so she's asking Daikon questions, trying to figure out like what is going on. And of course he's on a rampage. He's giving out some wrath. He's kind of getting off on this, and he can't be bothered to answer her. He's telling Manny like, "Hey, you need to escort her out of here, and if she don't go, like, you need to make her join the rest of these people." And Manny's like, he's like begging her at this point because he didn't want to do it. He did not want to unalive these people earlier on, and so he's like, Ruth, just please don't make me just go. Please just go. And so she obliges, but before she leaves Elder Mother, we see Elder Mother, and she's almost kind of content, dare I say happy, that all this is taking place, because she perceives it as, oh, the Raku has been so merciful and done these people a favor, I guess, to put them out of their misery. So that's how we open this thing up. All right, outside, Ruth is questioning Manny. They walked outside, and he tells her, listen, the heist is the one who ordered it. He's on a rampage right now. Like, we just need to leave it alone. And he's still begging her, like, hey, please, just don't get in it. Like, basically, there's enough going on. Don't get to asking too many questions or poke around. And him and me both know that Ruth is not going to oblige. She's going to get in, and she's going to, keep doing what she does, what she's so great at. And she's going to figure out and get to the bottom of why do we do this? Like, what's going on? So we know that she's going to figure out why you did it and readjust the plans. Okay, River shows up to see the highest as requested by way of Daikon sending him there, knowing that he's going to unleash all of that wrath and that fury on poor River, but, he has to see it through. And of course, Peter is still in his feelings and really talking trash, before letting him in to see the highest. Of course, he has no choice because River's like, hey, do you want to be responsible for delaying me and seeing the highest when he requested me personally to get there as soon as possible? You don't want to be bothered with that. So, of course, Peter has to oblige. He has to get over it. And before he does it, he does say, I wish you weren't living and blah, 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 whatever. And then you see River walk into the heist's trailer, and poor Peter, he's so hurt. Like, you can see him fighting back tears because, child, he thought River was the love of his life, and they was going to run off into the sunset. And so, he's fighting back tears, and I don't think that I feel bad for him. Y'all let me know in the comments if you do, but I don't feel bad for, Peter. It's just it was the means to an end. You just happen to be a pawn. You'll be all right. Either way, of course, we know that violence pretty much ensues as soon as River gets in there to see the highest, and we know a lot of the unspeakable things that's going to happen to him. Okay. Ruth intercepts Alex. Alex is the lady that recognized her daughter when the kids came out a couple episodes ago, and she has an axe in hand, and she is headed to the children's trailer to get her daughter come hell or high water, right? And so Ruth tells her, like, hey, you need to, let's just calm down. Let's think about this thing. I need you to think. And she's like, I'm thinking about going in here and get my daughter, and this axe is my way to get her. So I guess she thinks she's going to chop Obadiah up, get her child, and walk out of the front gate scot-free. And we all know that that's not how that goes. And so Ruth is like, listen, we all know how this is going to play out. Let's think about it. Y'all not gonna be able to walk out the front gate scot-free. They're just gonna gun you and your daughter down, and all of this would have been for nothing. So let's just calm down. And so Ruth's like, listen, what you don't want, we need to think of an alternate plan, but what you also don't want in this moment is for somebody to see you with this axe in your hand. So give me the axe, and let's just, basically trying to talk her off the ledge, essentially. And so now she has been able to calm Alex down, but Alex is going to prove to be a problem by the end of the episode. But y'all know how we do. We'll get to when we get to that part of the review. All right. Daikon sees the women standing outside of the sick trailer, and he offers them a grand speech like he's, the highest reincarnated, about it being within the will of the Raku, and they should be happy that the people are free. They're happy now. They're no longer suffering. They made the ultimate sacrifice for the Rakuman. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then once And then he also said the ones that were spared, you know, we're gonna need them healed up. They're gonna return with renewed energy, and they're gonna continue serving out the Raku as well. So, you know, not really a rally cry, because girl, we all looking at you like you just massacred all these people for no apparent reason. Whatever. And then he sees Zane. He sees Zane, and I keep calling her Zane. He sees Zane and tells her, hey, show me where Ruth is. So now he feels like he needs to go correct Ruth, or figure out what Ruth is going on, because she had the audacity to walk into the trailer while he was executing his mission. Okay, sure. Okay. We see the sheriff as they throw Andrew back in the cage. He was out there acting like he had to go potty and was just prolonging the issue and overheard some conversations. And he tells the sheriff that he overheard them talking about how they arrested somebody from the cartel, and Andrew and the sheriff are looking like oh crap, like things are about to get thick, because they, you know, a little bit more familiar with this particular branch of the cartel, much more familiar than the FBI agents are with, and they know that that whoever those people are that are there has something to do with Lilo. And what I realized in this episode that I missed in the other ones, the lady, girl, whatever she wants to be called, the one that shot the officer in the head, and the two guys that were with her, one of the guys that were with her is Lilo's brother. And so they're there to recoup their money, but they're also there to find Lilo, which there is no Lilo to be found, but I'm sure they'll find it out at some point. Either way, they're worried that the cartel is going to blow that place up so that they can get Keys up out of there. And so they know that, you know, there's more fighting coming down the pike, and they are just stuck in this cage just waiting on the inevitable to take place. All right. Ruth has to talk to Alex. She goes to Alex again because she needs to give her like the real and how this thing is going. And she gives her the harsh reality of what this place really is. Like, people get unalived. If you take your eye off of the greater prize of getting out of here, the second you let that guard down too far and, you know, speak no evil, see no evil, once you lose that mantra, you're going to transition off the planet, my girl. So I need you to calm down. And she tells her, like, listen, you have been blinded by what you believe to be true, because Alex is a person that she was a true Raku believer up until the moment she saw that her daughter had been converted to a trained, militarized killer, right? And so she's a person that she's not removed. She believes in it, but what she believes in the Raku, but she also believes that what her daughter is experiencing is not right. So she still believes, you know, there's a great Raku to go to in the end and all of that great stuff. She just doesn't like her daughter's aspect of that. This is what I'm picking up. You know, let me know if you guys are picking up something different. And so Ruth has to remind her, like, hey, you need to stay strong for the sake of yourself and Olivia. Like we got to do what we got to do, and we got to wait for an opportunity to present itself so that we can maximize it and move on. So what I also realized in this episode is that Alex thinks that Ruth is kind of like, she's always in charge of the girls, and so she trusts Ruth. I don't remember any prior interactions with them prior to this season, but she trusts Ruth, and she doesn't know that Ruth has a million other irons in the fire, and so she's going to trust Ruth to, you know, be the brains of the operation, for lack of a better term. Either way, she tells her, like, you know, Ruth, you're a great lady, and Sister Tally she starts to think of the memories of her having conversations with Sister Tally. If you're not familiar with Sister Tally, earlier in season 1 and 2, Ruth had like a camaraderie with Sister Tally, another lady within the camp, one of Andrew's little side pieces or whatever, and she ended up escaping, but ultimately getting unalived. We're presuming at this point we didn't see her demise, but we're picking up clues that she has been unalived since leaving the camp. All right. Anyway, and she was telling her how highly Tally spoke of Ruth and how they were such good friends, and they believed in taking care of each other's daughters and getting old and watching those girls grow up. And you can kind of see where that kind of shakes Ruth a little bit, because we're kind of far removed. Like, we're on season 5. And, you know, Sister Tally's like seasons 1 and 2, and so how we kind of forgot about her, and she's kind of humanized in this aspect because Ruth has, you know, become hardened by the process, and her only goal is to get her child. She don't really care about any of this other stuff, but, you know, Tally kind of humanizes that thing and lets us know that she's not as ruthless as they like for us to believe. She just has to play the game because it's a long game that we're playing. Either way, the next morning we see the Hyacinth River, and he is feigning his gratefulness for all he had to endure the night before. And then he asked the highest, like, hey, you know, I thank you for being so gracious, by way of sodomizing me and all that good stuff. I would love to be present. And then, you know, he goes on this rampage to say, hey, George and Lewis, they're traitors, and I hate that this happened to us, and I would love to be present when they are punished for their crimes, right? And so the Heist agrees. He's like, you know, sure, because he feels like, oh, now he could trust River, and River is here to service him and be great. But by the end of the episode, you'll see like River's not really in charge of the girls, but he like second in command, and that's great because I feel like last season he spent a lot of time like trying to be like Ruth and trying to work all these different angles and not maximizing his strengths. He was trying to live through Ruth or get Ruth to kind of do a lot of the dirty work for him so that he could get the payoff, which is ultimately the money. And hopefully, this is my guess, y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments, that he's going to try to tap into what his actual strengths are. I think he's going to lean more heavily on his strengths as opposed to partnership by way of Ruth and, you know, bringing all these people into the fold. Let me know what y'all think. And I will say, and there's a reason for me saying that that's going to prove itself by the end of this episode. So let's keep going. All right. He leaves the trailer. You know, he has a limp because, again, he's been violated. And so now he has to get back on this road to recovery. But then he sees Daikon walking up to him, you know, in the distance, and he has to kind of straighten up because this is me. Daikon is rolling up on him to gloat about, you know, the punishment all that he had to endure the night before, I'm sure. And so he has to straighten up because he's not going to dignify Daikon and give him the satisfaction of seeing him being in physical pain. And I agree with you, River. I wouldn't let him see. I wouldn't care if my leg had fell off in my jeans, baby. You don't get the satisfaction of seeing it. So I understand that. And so, of course, they're gloating. And so this little rivalry is going to come to a head by the end of the episode. And I'm kind of excited about how things are shifting and what that shift in power dynamic is going to be. But again, we'll get there. Desiree and Cal are trying to figure out how Tyrone was able to secure the land because he's freshly out of prison. And he was able to secure the land, the guns, the drugs, all of this stuff. And they're trying to figure out like who is going to be the weak link to try to. They're still building a case. They're on site and kind of waiting on their time to go in, but they're also still building a case. You know, it's a lot of moving parts right now. And so they want to figure out who, and they figure, oh, let's put the pressure on Andrew and maybe see if he'll crack. And I think it's not a wise idea because he's been in jail for however long at this point and he has not cracked. He's also FBI trained. He's never going to crack. He didn't even crack on the inside until he knew who to trust and let them know that he was FBI. But I doubt that he's going to be the chip that falls. I just don't see it. Okay. River goes to see Joan, half to check on her and half to try to figure out what this passcode is and information is for this money. And she is still unconscious and she's still in bad shape. And so he decides to kind of clear his mind while she's unconscious. So he's talking to her, but of course she's not going to respond because she's sleeping, unconscious, whatever it is. Either way, he's talking to her, and he talks about how he only wanted to be an entertainment lawyer. That's kind of all he wanted to do. But we kind of see his selfishness in this moment where he's like, yeah, it's not that I was just so excited to be an entertainment lawyer, but I know that it came with money and it came with perks, and that's all I wanted to do. You know, I just wanted to be that guy and revel in all that selfish gain that came with being in that great career path. And it's funny, you know, how he ended up here considering all that he aspired to be. But you can see where he almost loses his fight in this instance where he's like, but he's tired of being, you know, stuck in the compound with no control. There is going to be a lot of mental shifts that's going to happen with a lot of these people that had to come back, like they were off the grounds. And, you know, though let's just say it might have been hours of freedom. It's the most freedom that they'd had in maybe the years of the whatever their tenure is for being on the campus. And so having to give up that freedom again, whether willingly or unwillingly, it's taking a toll on people's mentals, you know, definitely by way of Lacey being cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and River, you know, just kind of giving up the fight. And, you know, at a certain point, you run out of fight, and I'm not mad at him about it. Either way, he tells her that he's tired of not being in control and his life being like how it is. And then he says, like, listen, I have a plan. I have a new plan, but I need that passcode from you. Like, I gotta get the passcode. I help set up the account, and I put them in your name, and I feel like half of that belongs to me. You know, basically just trying to do last ditch efforts. Again, she's not conscious, so I don't know how you're gonna get the message to her, but she heard you in the end. Either way, we see Alex. Alex kind of comes into the trailer without him noticing, without him hearing, and she's kind of like a wallflower. Like, people don't really notice her, and so he didn't even notice her coming in. But she's able to hear the conversation that he's having with Joan. And so she's tiptoeing in while he's talking, and he tells her, like, hey, he tells Joan, hey, I think I'm owed the passcode because I didn't let you die in those woods. Like just give me the passcode. Like, you owe me. Like, you owe me this. I didn't let you die. Like, and basically, I think this is his last ditch effort to get some sort of compensation for his pain and suffering, if that makes sense. And I'm gonna tie it. Well, y'all listen to me. We ain't gonna argue about it. Let me just hear where I'm going, right? That is logical, because that explains a lot of people that I'm not talking about one particular celebrity, all right? Anyway, when people file civil claims as opposed to criminal claims, especially when, like, the criminal statute of limitations, those types of things expire, and we go over to civil court, because I understand where it's like, hey, if I can't get you criminally, at least pay me for my pain. And I understand that, like, hey, if I had to go through all this turmoil and everything that is I have to go through with you, and I know you're guilty, I was there, I experienced it, and the criminal system, you know, let me down by way of you being powerful or whatever, at least let me get some compensation civilly. Even in a lot of these civil cases, I will tell you, a lot of these civil cases, in my unprofessional opinion, you win, but sometimes you never even get those sums of money. Like, for example, somebody sued, like the regular old Joe Blow, and the court awards them $4 million. If I ain't got the $4 million, you never see that money. However, you still have to admit guilt in court, or there's a satisfaction in knowing that there's some form of justice, you know, some form of paying me for my pain. Okay? So I said all that to say, you know, I think that this is what River was trying to get to. Like, hey, just give me something for all I have to endure, all that I keep having to endure being on this compound. Like, I've been diligent. We've been in this together. Like, give me that satisfaction. And then so you hear Joan, she's kind of mumbling, she's kind of stuttering, and he's like, you know, what you say? Like, speak a little bit louder. And she was like, passcode? No. And, you know, not with that much energy, not with that much vigor, but she's like, passcode? No, sir. And so she's in her mind enough to know, like, oh, passcode? No, baby, I'm not gonna be able to do it. And Joan took a lot of risk as well. Like, she was almost found out and all this stuff, so I just feel like you just gotta wait it out. You just gotta hold off until she gets better. That's your only choice when it comes to the money situation. It is what it is. And again, he's finishing the conversation, and he leaves, all the while not even noticing that Alice is present. And so, of course, she's going to prove to be, like I said, a problem by the end of the episode. All right, and so you see Alice, and she is running like Nettie getting off of Mrs. Plantation. Compound, whatever you want to call it. She is running. She hauling ass. And so she goes to Ruth, and she tells Ruth about River's conversation with Joan about the money. And of course, Ruth has to act none the wiser about everything that's going on. And she thinks that this is their way off of the compound. We can blackmail River and make him go get the money, or we could blackmail him and make him go get the kids. Either way, we can, you know, force his hand to be a part of the plan, basically. And so, Ruth, we already know that Ruth knows the information. Alex is just finding out because she happened to stumble across it. And so Alice thinks, like, hey, again, like she said, let's blackmail River, and we can do that. And Ruth is like, girl, that might not be a good idea because it could be your word against his, you know, trying to talk her off of yet another ledge. But here we are. All right. Desiree is talking to Keys because she did a background check on her. So Keys is the only one that got caught of the cartel people, the one that shot the officer. She is a woman, and tells her like she was able to find out everything about her past, her mom, her dad, her in and out of jail stints, blah 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 blah. And she also realizes like, hey, what's your connection to Tyrone? And she was like, to who? To Tyrone, girl. Like she knows that Keys and Tyrone served time in the same prison. And of course Keys is not coming up off no information. And I was a little bit confused because Keys is a woman and Tyrone is a gentleman. No, I'm not calling him no gentleman. Tyrone is a man. So I'm not sure how they spent time in the same prison unless there's like a women's wing and a men's wing. Don't really know, but sure, it's TV land, we'll go with it. Either way, they served time in prison, and so that might be the connection as to how they know each other, because she's in the cartel and she might have been the introduction, and she might know some background information as to how he came to be the heist. Sure. All right. Alex runs up on Ruth to talk. No, she runs up on River. She sees him and she runs up on him and she tells him, hey, Joan ain't doing well. And he's like, okay, you know, thanks for the information. And she just comes out and confronts him. She's like, listen, I heard you talking to Joan earlier. I sure did. And about that munyon. I'm gonna need you to go get my kids. I'm gonna need you to get them kids up out of there so we can get up out of here. And he's like, huh? And she's like, I'm gonna tell the highest this conversation that you had about some money. And he's like, girl, basically like paid her dust, like, girl, do what you want to do. Like, he got to save face at this point. But she tells him, listen, you need to go in there and get my daughter and get Callie or I'm snitching. And so now you've implicated Ruth in something that Ruth had nothing to do with. Either way, he says, she tells him like, hey, you got 2 days. If you ain't did it in 2 days, I'm gonna go ahead and dime you out and it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Oh well. And so even she tells him, and in this scene she confirms to him like, hey, I'm still like true blue to the Raku, you know, to the Raku Mas, but I just don't like the role that my daughter now has to play. So don't think like I'm trying to escape just to be escaping. Like, I'm not one of those. Like, she still believes in the Raku way of life. Again, she just wants her daughter to not be affiliated. But let's just presume she brought her daughter to them like Ruth, and now we gotta backtrack and try to figure out a way to get her daughter out of the situation. Okay, River and the Heist, they go to the punishment trailer so they can exact their revenge, right? And we see where Daikon is standing on the porch because earlier the Heist told him like, hey, I'm going over here to the punishment trailer. I don't want to be disturbed. And so, you know, Daikon probably thought he was gonna go by himself, but he sees River with him, right? And so he's looking like, what River got go up his sleeve. And so they get there and the tapes are still running. You know, we're still trying to force this Raku message into their head because we still need them. You know, we still need them. Now, by the end of the scene, I doubt that they're going to be very useful, but whatever. And it seems like they've learned nothing. They're still talking trash. They still want to get loose, blah, 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 blah. But then Lewis changes his tune and he starts to beg the Heist for forgiveness. I learned my lesson. That's my bad. I didn't mean to, point a gun at your head and, threaten to unalive you and all that other stuff. My bad, dog. My bad. And so he's like, sure. All will be forgiven if you are willing to make just one more tiny little sacrifice for me and the Raku. And he's like, okay, cool. Like, what you need? I'm willing and available. And he goes over to George and he decapitates him, right? Not up here, down there. So he gives him a sex change, for lack of a better term. No, that's not the right term. Either way, he chops the man's nether regions off. I'm trying to be appropriate, y'all. Anyway, he chops that off, and that's his sacrifice. And then at the same time, outside of the gate, the FBI hears the screams that are coming from George, so now they feel like they gotta call to action. They gotta get in there and see what's going on. Back in the trailer, it looks like George is passing out because he's losing a lot of blood. So George might be done because that's a lot of blood loss. He's probably gonna bleed out. Let's just go ahead and make that assumption. then he goes over to Lewis and he was like, Lewis is like, hey, don't try mine off. Like, he's like, no, I'm not gonna do you that. Like, what am I gonna do with two soldiers that don't have their cojones? And he's like, okay, cool. And then he tells him like, hey, but what I do need for you to do is see the light. And by doing that, he poked his lights out. Like, he took a knife and he jammed it into both eyes, and it looked very realistic. We know that it's not, but it was so gruesome with the sound effects and all that good stuff. And so now Lewis is gonna be blind, and George is probably gonna be out of here because it's definitely a lot of blood loss. Either way, we get some sadistic tendencies that's gonna be on French Street. All right, and so we see the FBI, they're in the woods to approach the compound. When they start taking fire, somebody is shooting at them. We're just going to presume it's the soldiers from the compound. One officer gets shot, and then they are forced to retreat. Which, duh, like y'all just was doing the shootout last night. Y'all are 12, let's just say 12 hours later, y'all thought their guard was let down? No, ma'am. They're on heightened alert, and now y'all done lost another FBI agent because y'all just want to be gung-ho. Y'all want to be Rambo about everything. So, well, all right. River in the Heights heads back to his trailer, and River kind of has to act like he's happy about seeing all of that go down. And then, you know, we see River kind of tap back into that power, because he tells the Heights, because we know that Heights is very impressionable if you can talk to him long enough, right? And so he reminds the Heights, like, yeah, I'm so glad they were punished, but I just feel like they should have never been able to get that close to you. They were Daikon's right-hand men, and it's just, you know, it's a lapse in Daikon's decision-making. And then he wishes that, you know, they had been vetted better, and that we wouldn't be in the situation with the FBI outside and everything that's recently happened if Daikon had been on his shit. Crap. If he had been on his, you know, been on his A's and his P's and Q's. All right. Then he reminds the Heights of how Oliver put them in jeopardy, also another one of Daikon's men. And then he tells River, like, hey, you all right? Like, Daikon has been deceived multiple times. Like, he a little weak. And then River's like, yeah, especially when he was talking to the FBI. And so the Heights is looking like, huh? Who said what now? And he's like, yeah, you know, it was just a light little conversation, but they called his cell phone because remember, River overheard that conversation. Well, at least saw him on the phone or overheard a part of the conversation. And he tells that Daikon was overheard talking to the FBI. And in that moment, power shifts and River's kind of back in the game. He's gotten back in the Heights' good graces, but it's also taken Daikon down a notch. And so Daikon now has to come to the Heights, and the Heights tells River, like, you don't leave, you stay here as well, because I got something, you know, I want you to witness this. And so he reminds Daikon of all his shortcomings, how Andrew was one of his good men that turned. Lilo ended up unalived on his watch, and we needed him. Oliver being the one to take like Lilo up out of here. George, Lewis, like all of these, you got a lot of strikes. You got a lot of strikes. Now you probably got a lot more favor. Like, you've done him a lot of favors. However, Rivers put that on the front of his mind, how you've had these discrepancies, right? And he's like, well, how much more grace do you think I need to extend to you? Like, I'm not finna keep giving you chance after chance after chance. And so the High tells him, listen, you can't be trusted anymore. He's like, please, like, you don't ever see Daikon like begging and pleading to nobody here. And this is where he's at now, because he's about to get demoted. Let's just skip to that part. And so now he's like, listen, I can't afford for you to fail again. Like, we can't afford the slip up. So but who I do know that I can trust wholeheartedly is River. And so River can barely hold back his smile, and because he knows, like, he has been able to shift that power dynamic, and now you almost answer to me, like, pretty much. Okay, so we see everybody in the pavilion, you know, everybody's out there, and he tells Daikon, like, hey, go ahead and get all them clothes off for me. Go ahead and strip that uniform down for me. Then he tells him, like, hey, go ahead and get that to River. Go ahead and hand that to my boy River. And so now he has to be publicly shamed because of his downfalls, right? And then he's demoted to a purple robe, and River has been promoted to black robe, or whatever robe that is. So, which we can apply, like, now River is in charge of the soldiers. We got a little bit more way to move. We got a little bit more trust, so he could kind of figure out his next course of action, and we can figure out, you know, a new way to get up out of here. And I love it for River, because again, River, he's been diligent in trying to get out of here and playing this game as wisely as he possibly can. So, you know, it'd be nice to see River get a win, honestly, even though he wasn't my favorite person for quite some time. Either way, that's how we sum up episode 4. Let me know what you think about the episode. It's definitely getting interesting. Do y'all think Joan's gonna make a full recovery? I think she is, because there is a scene that I saw somewhere with the highest, has like the sword up against her neck, and she's probably trying to talk him off the ledge because that money's probably gonna come back up, or whatever that looks like. Either way, again, that's episode 4. Let's talk about it in the comments. Like, comment, share, subscribe, or whatever it is that you feel like doing. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.